On the morning of March 31st, 1943, Second Lieutenant Owen Bagot dangled helplessly in his parachute harness 4,000 feet above the Burmese jungle, blood sliding warm down his left arm as he watched a Japanese fighter bank in a slow, predatory circle. Below him, the canopy of green stretched endlessly, broken only by streaks of smoke from his dying bomber. Above him, a Nakajima Ki-43 Oscar looped gracefully back into position, its pilot preparing to finish what he had started only minutes before. Two of Bagot's crewmates were already dead, shot in midair while hanging defenseless under their parachutes. Now the pilot was hunting again, this time lining up his guns on a single wounded American drifting helplessly downward. Bagot was 22 years old, a co-pilot who had already learned how brutal and unforgiving the air war over Burma truly was. He carried the equipment every Army Air Force's pilot carried: his flight suit, his survival kit, and a Colt M1911 pistol with 7 rounds of .45 caliber ammunition, 2 pounds of steel with a 50-yard effective range against someone on the ground. Against an aircraft moving at 200 miles per hour, it may as well have been a child's toy. But at that moment, with death closing in from above, it was all he had. Owen Bagot had been born in Graham, Texas in the summer of 1920. He grew up with the confidence of someone who excelled at nearly everything he tried. At Hardin-Simmons University in Abilene, he'd been the drum major of the cowboy band, a role that demanded precision, discipline, and a presence that could command attention. After graduating in 1941, he'd taken a job on Wall Street as a defense contractor, a stable job with good pay and a promising future. But after the attack on Pearl Harbor, he decided that sitting behind a desk wasn't enough. He enlisted in the Army Air Forces, completed pilot training at the New Columbus Army Flying School, and graduated in July of 1942 as a freshly minted second lieutenant. The war sent him to India within months, assigned to the 7th Bomb Group, where he learned quickly that the air war over Burma was unlike anything Americans had imagined. It was harsh, deadly, and indifferent to skill or courage. Sometimes survival came down to a single moment of chance. And on that morning, hanging beneath his parachute as Japanese fighters hunted him, chance was all he had left. The mission had gone wrong from the moment it began. Bagot's squadron, the 9th Bomb Squadron, had been ordered to destroy a railroad bridge at Pyenmana, Burma, a vital artery halfway between Rangoon and Mandalay. The Japanese relied heavily on it to move troops, ammunition, and supplies north toward their front lines. Destroying it meant slowing down their operations. But attacking it meant flying deep into enemy territory alone. No escort fighters could accompany them. The P-40 Warhawks based in India simply didn't have the range. 12 B-24 Liberators were sent to do the job anyway, flying over 1,000 miles round trip. They took off from Pandaveswar airfield early that morning, climbing slowly into the rising sun as they crossed into Burmese airspace. The B-24 was supposed to be America's long-range answer to the war in the Pacific, a 4-engine monster with 10.50 caliber guns, capable of carrying 5,000 pounds of bombs more than 1,000 miles. But in Burma, without escort fighters, it was a vulnerable giant. The bombers went in alone every time, relying on formation discipline, defensive fire, and luck, mostly luck. The men who flew them knew this all too well. The China-Burma-India theater was the forgotten war. While the world focused on Europe and the Pacific Islands, a small number of American units battled impossible distances, deadly weather, and relentless Japanese resistance. Everything, from fuel to spare parts, had to be flown in over the Himalayas, a supply line called the Hump, notorious for killing crews even on clear days. In early 1943, the 7th Bomb Group had already lost 18 aircraft, 18 crews gone in 4 months. The math was simple. Flying B-24s over Burma meant accepting you might not survive your tour. Many didn't. By late March, The 9th Bomb Squadron had lost 7 aircraft in 6 weeks. Replacement crews rotated in wide-eyed and confident, only to learn the truth within days. Some survived 3 missions. Some didn't even survive their first. When a bomber went down, the decision facing the crew was grim. Stay aboard and die in a crash, or bail out and hope the Japanese didn't shoot you in your parachute. The Japanese Army Air Force in Burma had long since abandoned any hesitation about attacking parachuting airmen. To them, a surviving American could return to kill more of their own. Better to finish him in the air while he couldn't fight back. Dozens of American airmen had already been killed this way. Bagot knew all of this when the Japanese intercepted his bomber that morning. The formation was still 60 miles from the target when radar alerted the Japanese to their approach. 13 key, 43 Oscars from the elite 64th Sentai rose from Mingaladen Air Base. These were not inexperienced pilots. They were veterans of Malaya, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies, and countless dogfights against Allied aircraft. They knew how to attack bomber formations. Their tactics were coordinated and lethal. They swept down from above in a perfectly timed assault, breaking through the B-24 formation like blades through cloth. Colonel Conrad Neckerson's lead bomber was hit first. Bagot's B-24, flown by First Lieutenant Lloyd Jensen, took a burst of 20mm cannon fire that ripped open the rear fuselage and detonated the oxygen system in a white explosion of shrapnel and fire. Flames spread instantly. The number 4 engine caught fire, then number 2. Smoke filled the aircraft, thick enough to blind the pilots. Sergeant Samuel Crosstick, the 19-year-old top turret gunner, grabbed fire extinguishers and battled the flames with bare, burning hands, but it was useless. The bomber was dying. The intercom went dead. Jensen fought to keep the aircraft level, coughing in the smoke, knowing every second he held it steady increased the crew's chances. He shouted for Bagot to get the crew out. Bagot stumbled back through the inferno, waving men toward the escape hatches. Through smoke and fire and chaos, he watched them jump. One by one, they vanished into the sky. The plane exploded only moments after Bagot cleared it. The sudden silence of the open air felt surreal. White parachutes floated around him. For a moment, it looked like they had all survived, until the Key 43s came back. They dove with surgical precision, firing into the helpless Americans. 2 of Bagot's crew were killed instantly. He saw them go limp as their parachutes carried their bodies downward. Then one fighter peeled away and turned toward him. There, suspended alone in the sky, Owen Bagot made the decision that would make his name a legend. He went limp, let his head slump, his arms hang, pretending to be dead. The fighter slowed, drifting toward him at near-stall speed. The canopy slid open as the Japanese pilot leaned out to inspect his target. It was a fatal choice. Bagot, his pistol hidden along his leg, raised the M1911 and fired 4 rounds. At 20 feet, he couldn't miss. The pilot's head snapped back. Blood sprayed the cockpit. The aircraft rolled, dropped, and spun into the jungle below. The other Japanese pilots saw it happen. In an instant, disbelief turned to fury. 3 fighters dove on him at once, guns blazing. Bullets shredded his parachute, ripped past his body, snapped suspension lines, but by some miracle none struck him. They pulled up and came again, targeting his chute, trying to collapse it completely. Holes tore across the silk canopy, but it held enough to slow him. As he neared the trees, the fighters finally broke off, too low to continue their attack. He crashed through branches, slammed into the earth, and lay gasping, stunned that he was alive. Jensen survived. Crosstick survived. The 3 men found each other in the dense jungle, but they knew they were not safe. Burmese villagers found them within an hour, and they were the kind who turned Americans over to the Japanese. The surviving airmen were marched to a garrison and handed over. Word traveled quickly. The Japanese officers wanted to meet the American who had shot down one of their fighters with a pistol. Bagot was interrogated, then transported to Singapore's infamous Changi prison. When he arrived, he was summoned by the camp commandant, Major General Aramura. Through an interpreter, Aramura asked Bagot to recount the event in detail. Bagot told the story exactly as it happened. Aramura listened, then surprised him. He said that Bagot's act showed courage and warrior spirit. Because of this, he said, he would offer the young lieutenant an honor, the chance to commit seppuku, the ritual suicide of a samurai. A Japanese officer even demonstrated the technique. Bagot declined. For Americans, he said, suicide was not honorable. Aramura accepted this, but disappointment showed plainly in his face. And so Bagot entered the general population of Changi prison, where starvation, disease, and brutality were the norm. Over 2 years, his weight dropped from 180 pounds to 90. He endured dysentery, malaria, beriberi, infections, and the daily grind of forced labor. The death rate was staggering. Men who gave up hope often died within days. Yet somehow, Bagot survived. Oddly, guards often left him alone. Japanese officers occasionally visited, asking to hear the story of the pilot he had killed. Even among his enemies, his act had become legend. And through it all, despite hunger, illness, and the endless uncertainty of captivity, one truth remained undeniable. On that morning in 1943, while falling helplessly through the sky, he had accomplished the impossible. He had brought down a fighter aircraft with a pistol, a feat so improbable that even the men who witnessed it struggled to believe it. But for Owen Bagot, it had never been about glory or legend. It had been a choice made in a single desperate moment, when he had absolutely nothing left to lose, and survival balanced on the edge of a trigger pull.